or I guess of 2024. And so, as usual, just a reminder for those who are new, we want to welcome you here. Those who are, returning from last year, welcome back. And so, we're going to share a bit of what makes this tug different. So, this is a tug. It's dedicated to learning about analytics in Tableau. It's virtual. It's every month, so you can always come in and join us. So, we encourage you to, join our group on our page. It's going to be analytics all the time. And occasionally, when we have new products, new features, and things like this, occasionally the Tableau team is going to join us so that we get to kind of see a little bit of that. And so, as usual, subscribe to the page on Bebby so that you're up to date with all the events and everything we got going on for you. And then now we're going to introduce the leaders. So we've got Annabelle Rincon, we've got Prasan Prem, and we've got myself. And so Annabelle, she's the Tableau Center of Enablement lead, and her passions are Tableau, her dog, and chocolate. And she currently resides in Zurich, Switzerland. And apart from this particular tug here, she also co-leads Data Plus Women in Zurich. And so, I would encourage you to go ahead and show some support. They've got a lot of stuff there. So you can scan this barcode and definitely, also get in touch with their page to see what they've got. Prem, Tableau visionary, social ambassador, Tableau featured author, and a member of the Tableau Speaker Bureau. And of course, we've seen Prasan all over the place. He found a buddy program and his buddy talks tug, and he's been doing a lot of great stuff in terms of just teaching Tableau. So as far as his journey goes, Prasan has been working with Tableau for around 3 years. And as mentioned, he mentors young professionals with his Iron Viz Diner. So check out the website, a bunch of courses that you can take, some free, some paid, but all valuable. He's got a strong sense of community building and mentoring, and he's mentored over 500 data professionals till date. I think probably by now it's over 1,000, I would say. So we should probably update this number because I'm sure it's gone up, over time there. And so fun fact about Prasan, apart from his nerdy side, you can find him partying, trying out different food genres, or geeking over anime. You have myself, database manager at Post Media. I do freelance with Vidside Analytics on the side. I've been using Tableau since 2020, and I've honestly just been really drawn to it ever since, as you probably know. I just believe that, data is one of those two things that we can really use to connect with people, right? And so, it's just my thing. Fun facts about me. Okay, so this says that like I love Tableau and I need to viz all the time, but I think that's very evident. I'm supposed to have changed this. So I think a different fun fact about me, which maybe I will share. I take like long baths basically almost every day, or if it's not a long bath, it's a long shower. To me, it's like a huge part of my, I guess, self-care. I just love the feeling of like just the heat, like the super hot water. So it's like a sauna thing for me. So I guess maybe that's a fun fact that I could put here instead of this. So a few ground rules today. Of course, as always, you are welcome to ask questions and you're also welcome to interact, right? But a key difference here is, just chat in the chat section, have fun, give shout outs, say hello. But if you want to ask a question, we encourage you, please come to the Q&A section because the chat moves really fast. And, we don't want to miss your question with all the awesome stuff that's going through in the, box. So please use the Q&A for that. Of course, please enjoy. The session is recorded. And so if you need to step away or you're getting distracted or something, we're going to make sure that you get a link to the video afterwards, and it's going to be available on YouTube. And so, of course, we always welcome love on social media. So send a shout out, our page or analytics at analytics tug on Twitter or X, whatever you refer to it as. Today's agenda, welcome, which we've already done. And we're going to have a bunch of awesome speakers today for anyone who's ever imagined what it would be like to, do an Iron Viz. You've thought about what it feels like to get from A to B. We got a bunch of people here today who have done said um, thing here, and they're gonna talk to you about all their journeys from start to finish, the submission, the selection, everything like that. So anything you can think about relating to IMViz, these are superstars who have essentially excelled at it, and they're going to be able to share what they've learned um, from there. The different perspectives are going to be, obviously you can see here Patricia, first time entrance, Chris Lake, it's not just his entrance, but the 5 year journey. So, keep this is more of an inspirational piece. And so I encourage you to keep your mind open and just kind of get something valuable from here. Any questions, we're always welcome to those. I'm going to pass it off to Prasan to bring in our speakers. And so over to you, Prasan.
Thank you, Shimdi. Hey, everyone. I'm really excited for this event. We have the three finalists here. First, we have Jessica Moon. She is a data analyst and she is right now at Huntsville, Alabama, and has been working closely with Tableau for the last 5 years. She's a two-time Tableau Public Ambassador and has received 6 Wiz of the Day awards. That's a lot. And Jessica has participated in the last five Iron Viz qualifiers and became a finalist this year. Congratulations, Jessica. And today we are going to hear her Iron Viz journey. So I'll just hand over to Jessica. Take the stage.
Awesome. So I'm going to stop sharing. So please feel free to take over, Jessica.
Okay. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Entire screen. Screen 2. Let's select. Can y'all see any screen share? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. All right. Good. Prepared. All right. Thank you so much, Analytics Tug team, for having me today. Hey y'all, I'm Jessica Moon from Huntsville, Alabama. Let me give you a quick snapshot of who I am. A wife for the past 15 years, a proud mother of 3 wonderful children, and a data analyst. I'm thrilled to be serving a second term as a Tableau Public Ambassador, and somehow, some way, I've managed to secure a spot as an Ironviz Finalist. In today's presentation, I'll walk you through my journey, showcasing some of my past entries and delving into the process and techniques behind my latest entry that landed in the top 3. Before placing this year, the closest I had ever gotten to the Iron Viz stage was right behind the judges. Last year was my first time attending conference in person. I was a Tableau Public Ambassador, and there was special seating for the keynotes and this competition. For the first keynote, I didn't realize how early one should get to the floor and ended up getting seated with executives, which made me feel incredibly self-conscious as I was in a data tee and jeans among a group of suited individuals. On the final conference day, someone posted in a group chat that Ironviz seating had opened up, and I thought, okay, I've learned my lesson, it's time to go. When I got there, organizers were dedicated to packing the house and leaving no seat empty. I was escorted to the front row where I sat between Emily Kund and Luke Stanke. I remember during the video presentations turning to Emily and saying I would have to clean my office if I ever made it this far. I've participated in the last 5 Iron Viz qualifiers, each one a unique challenge encompassing data collection, prep, storytelling, analysis, and design. Every year, I learn something new and feel a tremendous sense of accomplishment. Let me take you through the entries I've made. Here is my first entry. I've got some of the traditional criteria notes listed to the right. Health and wellness was the theme, and what was on me and many Americans' minds was the COVID pandemic and how to quell the crazy growth in cases. Alabama had just instituted a mask mandate, and I waited very last minute to put this together to accumulate 2 weeks of case data since it had been put in place. Data collection was very manual for this entry and consumed most of the dashboard development time, as 4 files were downloaded for each of Alabama's 67 counties and then collated in a master Excel document. Design-wise, it's lollipies showing a user-selected COVID case metric for top counties by a user-selected criteria against a collage of anti-mask pictures I collected from a family member's Facebook page. This was my first go at Iron Viz, and while I'm still pleased with the aesthetic, it definitely didn't scratch the storytelling itch. My second entry was in response to the joy theme. This entry, I was hoping to crack the top 10 as I tried to tell the story about my daughter, who definitely brings me joy and has kind of dominated my social media posts. When I thought of joy, I thought of Ode to Joy, and an ode is a poem, so I did visuals within a poem. It's one I've pondered hiding because I'm just not someone who likes being vulnerable, and I feel a little exposed with this one. At the time, there was a storytelling with data challenge I was considering entering that focused on using red in visual design. Red is Natalie's favorite color, so keeping that in mind and some feedback I received at the feedback session Sarah Bartlett coordinated, I ended up with a very red, minimal contrast viz. The text is definitely hard to read being gray on red. This was the year of Sam Parsons' Rivers of Time, which was just incredible. After seeing the top 10, I was like, okay, Jessica, you're not that good. I knew the next time I participated, I was going to focus on learning. The 2022 qualifiers theme was the arts, and I quickly arrived at comedy in Huntsville as my take. I had recently taken about 60% of a web scraping Udemy course, and I was ready to put my skills to the test. The idea is that it would be a schedule of comedy events in Huntsville, and the user could get an idea of when was a good time to see a show and what was available at or below their price point. I had learned that Tableau Public could refresh Google Sheets, and I actually did weekly data updates for almost a year after publishing. Obviously, the story in particular here was lacking, but I enjoyed figuring out quicker ways to extract and collate the data, as well as hone my map layer skills. Third entry with lollipies, too. Last year's qualifier theme was games. It took me a while to figure out what to do, as I'm not one to play games. Being in Alabama, I am forced to watch some sports, but it's not what I enjoy. I was messaging these sentiments to Michelle Freeman when she suggested doing something with football because I'd done some prior vizes on the subject. I had learned how to extract data from sportsreference.com using Python, and I had some code that I adapted to pull pretty much all the college football data. Then with Alteryx, I narrowed it to data of SEC teams playing non-SEC teams. And after extracting the PlumPy coordinates for a variety of number of points, created a monster data flow to join in the proper coordinates for different display options. It was a sizable technical effort. I left feeling like I had grown more in Python and Alteryx, as well as Tableau areas of map layers and parameter actions. Once again, really no real storytelling. I left this round feeling like if there was a theme I could connect to, I'd really developed proficiencies in data extraction and preparation so I could get into Tableau much faster, and the story would come more naturally if I felt connected to the subject. This year's theme was love, and when it was released on Twitter, it was said, "Viz what you love." Well, I had found I really love visiting a TV show. My previous Iron Quest entry on Emily in Paris is one of my best liked vizzes, and I had a few other TV show-centric vizzes under my belt. I'd become pretty good at quickly extracting ratings, cast, and script data. I was already rewatching Hart of Dixie because I was reminded of how much I enjoyed it when I discovered the lead in the show I was watching prior was Mayor Levon Hayes. In October, I was also responsible for a user group presentation and a Data Plus Movies example viz, so I didn't have the luxury of mulling my topic. I was going all in on Hart of Dixie. Let's talk a little bit about the process. I'm not that strong in PowerPoint building and couldn't quite figure out how to show that I was constantly bouncing through data collection, design, and analysis, getting ample feedback on ideas and visualizations as they came to fruition. It's very important to mention I took a week off from work for a kid-free excursion to Indiana, where my husband was attending a metal building conference. I had all day to work on my vizzing efforts and most of the evening as my husband was having to study for metal building tests. If I did not have this concentrated week, I would not have been able to complete everything. By the end of the week, my Data Plus Movies viz was 90% complete. I had a plan and design ideas for Iron Viz, some episode data, as well as the first slide on my dashboard, which used the data I could quickly extract. Even still, my free time after the trip was well dominated by this viz. There was a little time in the mornings, a couple hours in the parking lot of my girls' dance studio, and every night before bed, I made my husband watch a lot of Hart of Dixie so I could take notes on cases, places, events, and romances. Some episodes were rewatched or skimmed if notes were lacking or non-existent. Then it was vizzing while we watched the next show, which I think was Reacher. I can't remember. This slide is about feedback. Feedback was crucial to my viz's success, and I had coworkers and data fam members weigh in. The double arrows are to folks who were also entering, as feedback tended to go both ways. At the very beginning of the project and toward the end, I attended office hours with Nicole Clausen and Michelle Freeman, which they hold on a weekly basis. It was in one of these sessions I discovered that there would be users who wished to not have episodes and romances spoiled by the viz, and spoiler toggle was added to the list of features I hope to tackle. If you haven't been to office hours, I highly recommend it as I'm a frequent flyer and Michelle and Nicole are awesome. My vizzing Hart of Dixie inspired Michelle to watch it, and she'd let me know about the scene she enjoyed, which also helped me craft some annotations and narrative. So much of the viz fell to the final couple days, and I had to take a little more time off and endured some long evenings. Really, all the data fam ladies here were inspirational and helped me push through to get this viz launched. I wish I did a better job keeping screenshots of iterations, but I've got a couple of snips of the location to episode network that did not shape up like I expected, and the ill-placed Alabama that followed. I also thought about a radar chart for number of cases per category. That didn't pan out. Another idea that ended up on the cutting room floor was a spiral number of cases graph like the COVID one in the New York Times. There just wasn't the time for that, and I don't think as many insights could have been gleaned from it as the box plots that replaced that notion. I didn't do everything in a vacuum. I studied some past Iron Viz qualifier entries and noted things I liked about them. I looked at Lisa Trescott's viz on Drag Race and Pradeep Kumar's viz on Avatar: The Last Airbender, as they covered television shows as well. Brittany's games entry from last year had awesome organization and clean design, so I studied it as well. Let's walk through the viz now. The first dashboard introduces the series with episode ratings and viewership of the series while it was active. This series unfortunately had a short fourth season and was canceled, but being on apps like Netflix and Prime have breathed new life into it. I found that 63% of IMDb series reviews were left after 2015 when the series had ended and folks were likely streaming it on an app. The stethoscope was used as a nod to the series lead, Dr. Zoe Hart, being a surgical intern turned family physician. I carried the 4 shades of greige throughout the viz to represent the 4 seasons of the show. It was looking through the ratings graph tooltips that I discovered there was a writer on the show named Donald Todd, and I made the parallel to the Don Todd character, who was apparently named after him. I thought maybe this is another angle to look at. The second view was one of the last things I did on the viz, cases. I had found several episodes without a single medical case, so I did go through those again to verify before I felt comfortable doing classifications using ChatGPT. Through conversations with ChatGPT, primary and secondary classifications of cases were determined. The primary classifications group the bubble charts, which show for an episode the number of patients with a particular ailment. Most of the bubble charts are void of color, with eggplant showing the general practice cases called out in the blurb to the left, seafoam and gold pointing out the interesting cases of syphilis and foreign accent syndrome mentioned in the middle text. But like I mentioned before, the user might not want to have an episode spoiled like that, so toggling this spoilers to off causes that middle section of text to disappear. The box and whisker plots show cases by episode, separated by season, and episodes considered an outlier in number of cases are easily seen. I also added an average line, which in hindsight I don't love, but is a testament to the impact of outliers, as season 1 has the highest median number of cases, but season 2's average is longer. But season 2's average is larger due to the episode with the flu. Places is the next look, and it's definitely the most artistic of the views. While there were many, many Bluebell locations featured on the show, this looks at the top 5 locations in terms of number of episodes they had appeared in. I used Tristan Guillevin's Veroni generator here, and the coordinates were adjusted to be used within map layers, centered at 0, 0, and scaled based on their number of episodes. The user can learn more about the location by clicking the filter button like this. Then through dynamic zone visibility and parameter magic, it hides the Alabama view, filters the sunflower, and shows a jump graph of the 5 locations and the distance between episode features, with the filter location being emboldened. I had looked at the Hart of Dixie wiki fandom page when coming up with the location descriptions, and I learned that the Rammer Jammer was also the exterior of Merlotte's in True Blood. I had instantly recognized Annabeth's mother as the Vampire League spokeswoman, and this information about the Rammer Jammer set had me wondering if other actors in the show had also been in True Blood. The next view looks at romance on the series, with the initial look looking at the 5 main characters and who they were romantically linked with in what I call small multiple chords. Through data prep and studying Brian Moore's Curves blog, I brought in the coordinates and within Tableau determined the logic and sorting needed to darken the characters' observed relationships. I'm going to switch spoilers on for this next step. By clicking a character's face like this, you can see the text updates to detail that character's romances, and there's also a Gantt chart so you can see the various starts, stops, and durations. If the user doesn't want to know who the character ends up with, switching the toggle back to off removes the Gantt chart and the description becomes more generic. Clicking the picture again removes the filter. The next dashboard looks at all the various events happening in Bluebell and sorts them into 8 different categories. The residents celebrate so often, they have festival fatigue. I have another bubble chart here, and it was the original bubble chart done prior to cases. The bubble chart shows a category/episode combination. The timeline shows which episodes had events. The events are actually pie charts sized by the number of events, and each wedge represents an event category. This is a product of some curvy timeline code my dad and I created for the DataFam project and is actually available on my public profile. You can even just download the coordinates if there's a combination that works for you. Quirks is a compilation of some of the fun, random aspects of Hart of Dixie. I enjoyed all the retorts on Zoe's shorts, so I captured those quotes, as well as quotes about Burt Reynolds, who is the mayor's pet alligator, and quotes about Don Todd, extreme golfer, who seemed to unite the men of Bluebell. I also point out the using of the writing staff as character names, which I did discover through my previous analysis, as well as actors who were featured in at least 2 Hart of Dixie episodes that also acted in True Blood. The last dashboard gives thanks to the awesome folks who gave me feedback and my husband who tolerated Hart of Dixie 2, sometimes 3 times over. There's also a link to the quiz, which should still be active. As everything is in Google Sheets, taking the quiz and placing in the top 5 should land you a spot on this dashboard the following day. I'd love to have an all eggplant bar chart. Now that we've gone over the Viz, let's take a look under the hood. First, you'll see that everything looks faded. I don't exactly remember when this happened, but I do remember thinking if it published this way, I was just done. So I've counted 35 floating elements, and the rest is tucked into containers. I don't know where the horizontal container came from. I did find some containers tried to sneak in. I did try to name all my containers based on the section of contents it contained. This Viz was built vertically first because I discovered containers would no longer accept new elements when dynamic zone visibility was applied to them. Also worth noting is that 12 of the 35 elements are just arrows. Each arrow sheet has a number 1 through 6 that changes a parameter that progresses the Viz forward and exposes the container and floating elements associated with a true result of the parameter being that number with dynamic zone visibility. I originally tried to have just forward and backward arrows with a calculation of parameter +1, but found that it took 2 clicks to move one slide, which I felt wasn't a good user experience. These arrows are set to appear when the parameter is on their given number and disappear as soon as they are clicked. Lastly, let's take a look at these sunflowers. I loved how Michelle Freeman's country song visualization from a couple qualifiers past had a guide that let the user know how far into the analysis they had made it, and I felt this was important for mine with the slide-like nature. These sunflowers were the result of a very intense discussion with ChatGPT. I desperately wanted these flowers, but I didn't want to pay with extra spins from a lot of calculations. ChatGPT finally got my gist of wanting the stem to arc to the left for odd number pages and to the right for even pages. The program was fed an Excel file with page and elements just ended up being how high I wanted the stem to go. Then through lots of math, about 600 coordinates associated with 6 pages of stems was created. As we go into the sheet, you can see there are 2 different colors associated with each layer. I found faded colors by clicking on an element of the sunflower and then getting a snip of the other non-highlighted flowers, which was pasted into PowerPoint, and I used the eyedropper there to find the various hex codes. There's map layers, which are my favorite, And you can see there's the stem, the petals, and the center of the sunflower. So that's all I had planned to demo. In conclusion, I'm still very shocked to be in this position. There were so many excellent submissions. I could see an outcome where I wasn't listed at all. I'm working through some major imposter syndrome, obviously some nervousness, and I hope I can get over that hill through ample preparation for the event. Are there any questions?
So I think that the Q&A were good in there. So I guess if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop in.
I do see one from Kimberly. How do I plan to prepare for the event? So far, I've been watching some prior Iron Viz competitions, noting what they did for their analysis, their visualization, especially how they did their presentation, which is probably what I'm the most nervous about. I also have some Udemy courses on Tableau Prep, which is my understanding is what we have to use for any data shaping, and just working on my presentation skills like today. Okay, how many hours in total work? Oh gosh, I think at least 80. We think of watching all the episodes and all the work I put into it, probably around 80.
Okay. I think we're good then.
Maybe I can ask one question, just like as an overall. I'm probably going to ask this of each of our speakers. So if you could give just one tip for all of us, if there's anyone who desires to be in the position you're in today, which is, going on stage, what would be your singular tip for us today?
I would continue practicing so you can get better in all the aspects that lead up to Iron Viz, the data collection, the design, the storytelling. There's Iron Quest that Sarah Bartlett leads that gives you an idea of themes that might be used, and the time boxed month to get a fairly sizable visualization together. And they offer feedback, which is amazing.
Awesome. So there we go. Yeah, I think feedback is a really big part of the process, and there's been a lot of good feedback. As someone who's been part of that initiative, a lot of people really speak to how it's helped them throughout the process. So, I definitely agree with that. Okay. So I guess we bring in our next speaker.
Hello, guys. All right, let me share the screen.
Sorry, Jessica, do you mind stop sharing? And then I guess we'll do a quick introduction. Or do you want to introduce yourself, Patricia?
Go ahead. I'll wait.
Okay, I'll pass it back to you, Prasan, and then.
Sure.
Okay, so there we go.
Okay, so I think we were all amazed by that single dashboard entry and how much work there was involved. Now we have the second entrant, and she entered into the Iron Viz for the first time. And if you look at her journey, she kicked off her Tableau journey in March 2020 when she started playing around with it. The funny thing is, her former boss wanted a modern tool for slick reports and complex calculations, and she got the chance to dive into Tableau. Fast forward a bit, she ended up in Prague, landing a Tableau developer job, and that's where things got even cooler. She learned the art of not just making charts for business, but making them look pretty too. And not just pretty, she nailed the Iron Viz entry as well. And apart from sharing her Tableau creations on Tableau Public, she plugged into community, and she is also leading the Prague Tableau user group. So now I'll hand over to Patricia, and she'll take her through a journey. Thank you so much, Patricia, for coming on board.
Thank you for having me. So I'll start sharing the screen. Okay, so you should see the screen now. All right, so hi everyone. Thanks again for having me. And I'm excited to share my Iron Viz journey for you as a first time entrant. So my name is Patja, which is short, actually, a nickname for Patricia. And I didn't realize I put it into my submission form until I saw it on the announcement call. So that was kind of weird, but we'll go through it. So it's Patricia. And I thought I'd share my journey on how I got into the finale and how I actually got into this call in the end. So my journey started, or my career, we can say, after some summer internships. It started in 2018 with me landing a job in marketing. I was doing PPC and SEO specialist role, so it was really hands-on setting up of the campaigns in the various tools and just communicating with the clients because I was working in this agency. And after some time, I learned that I actually like getting into the numbers and discussing with clients and the reporting part more than actually setting up those campaigns and the creative part in terms of copywriting and all that. So that's how I started to, or that's when I started to look into how I can actually make this my full-time job, not only one part of it. And as it was already mentioned, my then boss was looking for some nice tool. They used to have some reports in other tool than Tableau, but it was not sufficient. So they were on the lookout for some cool tool with possibilities to create some advanced calculations and also to make it look nice, make it accessible for the users. So that's how I got into Tableau. And at that time, I was still at university, so I used the Tableau's offer that there was available 12 months of license, of creator license for Tableau for the students. So I took advantage of it, and I started using Tableau back then. The beginnings were really self-paced, I would say. I was just scrolling through the forums, checking all the videos, available Udemy courses, and all that. And then after I finished my university in 2021, I landed a job as a full-time Tableau consultant, let's say, which was really interesting for me because it was back at that time, since I was not part of communities and all that, I didn't really see that many job offers that would concentrate on Tableau only. So that was really cool, and I landed the job. And I have, I think, what was a really important point in my career or in how I got here, and that's the Viz Games in 2022. It was in March, so it was actually almost exactly 2 years after I started working with Tableau. And in case you're not familiar with what Viz Games are, it's basically Iron Viz specific for one company. So this one, my then employer was Deloitte. So this one was for all Deloitte's offices across the world. And me and my colleagues, we participated. The topic was diversity, inclusion, and equity. And we visualized, we took our turn, so you can see it also on the public to check it. We visualized literacy, which was, I think, really interesting. We landed a spot in top 4, so that was also really cool and a huge achievement for us. And it's still one of the most of my most favorite visits I participated on. But the reason I have it here mentioned is not just to brag, but it was at this time when I learned about Iron Viz in more detail. So this was in March 2022, and the submissions for the Iron Viz 2022 were already closed by the end of the year, and so I couldn't participate here. Then in 2023, I was changing jobs and a lot of stuff going on, so I didn't really prioritize participating. But then on the conference in second quarter on 2023, I told myself, okay, so I'll challenge myself. I'll participate in Iron Viz 2024. And since then, I was from time to time refreshing the page and checking if there's already topic released, because I couldn't find the timeline and all that jazz. So basically, I was checking that, and fast forward to the autumn, so the October 2023, when the topic was supposed to be released, I was really all hyped up, and I was like, okay, so whatever the topic is, I will participate. I will not be stopped by, for example, not liking the topic, and I will participate no matter what. So now there's fast forward to 2nd of October 2023, the topic was released. And by the meme here, you can see this was me for few days after it was released, like 10 or even more days. I wouldn't say, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say I was unhappy with the topic, or I was, like, I can do this. But for me, the topic of law or the theme was really too abstract and wide in terms of maybe too big of a space you can visualize, or too many things you can think about. So if you like sports, you can visualize anything sports related. If you like fast cars, you can visualize anything fast cars. You can use the romantic love as your inspiration. So there was a lot of things, and for me it was originally I thought, well, after the theme is released, there will be a million ideas going through my head, and it didn't. So that was a bit difficult in the beginning. Also, what I struggled with a bit was was how subjective the law is to everyone. That being, for some it might be safety, for some it might be comfort, for some it might be something else, and it's really difficult to find common ground in this. I think so. I was struggling a bit, but eventually I distilled 3 topics that I was contemplating on creating, or I was choosing from. And the potential ideas I had were these 3. So the first one, the I love you phrase, I came across this study and I was not able to find it for this presentation. So I apologize for that. I'll try again and I will share it somewhere. So there was this study that was discussing how in some languages, the I love you phrase is gender specific. That meaning that, for example, in English, the I love you phrase is not, you can tell by just hearing this if the person identifies as female or male. But in some languages, it's always one of these. So it's difficult for the people who don't, who don't, I don't know how to say that, but just maybe keep it short. So in some languages, it's difficult for these people who don't identify as female or male. The reason I didn't go for this one is because it would mean that I would have only one data source, that I would visualize the results of someone else's work, which is completely fine if it was, for example, some collaboration, but I didn't want to base it on one data source to be used. Yeah. Then the other one I was thinking about was how about law in terms of how it is formed in our body in terms of chemistry. So how the the hormones go and what's their path. The reason I didn't go for this one was because I imagined this like little line, but it would be probably only that thing that I could visualize. And just in general, this would be difficult for me to come up with some interesting visualizations. And the last point, which you already know I went for, is what is not law. And this is very closely tied to the point from on the previous slide that it's very subjective. Law is very different for everyone, and it's difficult to find a common ground there. So that was one thing, but I think it's, or I'm sure, I don't think I'm sure about that one, that there are certainly things that we can't say that are law, like we all align on it. So that was the idea behind this. So I, in the end, went for the what is not law topic. Also, maybe interesting fact, this was originally the first idea I had, and I thought about it the day the topic was released. So this was really something that struck me, and then I was thinking about something else, but I kept this idea. So now I have the idea or the topic. Well, what was next? So there are 3 parts, and I'll cover the Viz drafting and development in Tableau more in the presentation. But the first thing I did was I did some quick research on the topic. One thing is to have an idea, and the other thing is to have enough data to visualize it and to be able to really give the message, send out the message you want to send out. So I did quick research. I came up with I think there are 4 actually. I'm not sure now, but the 4 statements. So love is not abuse, and loneliness, inequality. So I came up with those, and I then was looking for the data to support these ideas. What surprised me, and I included it here because I didn't expect it, is that there was quite some decent amount of data available, but it was oftentimes specific for some country. So let's say if I was looking for, these big stats, like the big numbers, I found some, but it was specific for, let's say, Australia only. So Australia, or like those, the most interesting things where I was not able to generalize them on, for example, the whole world. So I still wanted to make this relevant to most of the people and not country specific. Never mind. The other part was the Viz drafting. So I was playing around. Oh, I have a mistake in the presentation. I was playing around in Figma and Procreate. Figma, I bet you're familiar with, but it's a graphics tool basically for mainly used for vector graphic, I believe. And Procreate is an app I have on my iPad where you can draw with a pencil or even with the finger, I guess, which is a bit more difficult, but you can do it. So that's and I'll show you where I used it actually. And then obviously the development in Tableau. So me putting everything together and adding the final touches in terms of the charts and also the sketches I was creating. Now, this is what it looks like. I still have the Figma file. So this is what it looks like in Figma. And I started with the initial draft. I probably won't need to describe it a lot, but basically what I did, I knew that I would want to do infographics, and I was playing around with the idea of doing horizontal one. Before that, I did a bunch of vertical ones, and I just wanted to challenge myself and also try some slightly different format than what I was used to. And I knew that I would want to do these little cards next to each other. And at one moment, I was really thinking about doing cards for the visualizations to look like they are the playing cards, which in the end I didn't. And now thinking back, it was a good idea because why would I use the card design? And what I did here is that based on the initial research I had, I marked the main topics I wanted to discuss on each of those cards. And I drafted the text. And I also, if I found some interesting, for example, visualization that I would want to use, I placed it here as a screenshot, or if I only had the data, I would create the very rough draft of the chart in Excel, and I would place it in here so that I can move it and know where I want to place stuff. Then maybe I don't know if other people have it, but I think part of me thinks in color, and I know it sounds a bit weird, but I can't start creating anything even in like this is the most I can get, and then I need to have some colors in place. And you can see they look very similar. I only had two things in mind when picking colors. By the way, this is through the website Coolors, Coolors. And what was I saying? Yeah, I had only two rules in mind. One would be I almost never, and I hope no one will find it somewhere in my visits, I never use black and white, like pure black and pure white. And also I seem to have a thing for army green color, but those were the only rules I had, and I wanted some accent color. So these were the color palettes I was thinking about, and maybe I would ask you, but I'm not sure if you're able to answer. But if you knew what the winner color would be, the color palette, it's this one. So yeah, just in case you're wondering, and I understand that they look too similar maybe to each other, so you can understand how difficult for me was to pick up only one. Right, so then I started to, because I had the initial draft, I already had the color palette in mind, and I wanted to visualize something. I was checking some inspiration online. I was mainly I checked public as well, Tableau public, but the main place I went to search for inspiration was actually websites with graphics work. Does it make sense? Like, I was not checking the charts themselves or the works on public, but more focused on the visual part of things. I don't know if that's the right approach, or looks like it is, but that's how I was gaining the inspiration for the visual part. On the left side, you can see the inspiration I had in mind in general, which what I liked there was that it was pretty simple charts. I also liked the way it was visualized, so it was not just a random bar chart, but it was some interesting take on it. But I was trying to get inspired by the way it looked rather than the content. And on the right side, you can see how it turned out. I think only thing it has in common is the shape of the card. Other than that, it's just like what you order and what you get. So I was not very happy with this one. And mind you, this was, what was it, like 20th of October. So I was already, a lot of time passed, and I didn't have much time to spend here, and I really wanted to participate. So I was starting to get a bit stressed out. So after this, knowing that I didn't have that much time, I said, okay, so let's leave it for a bit and then get back to it, and let's see, because I didn't want to, I wanted to approach this so that I have fun and not that it stresses the hell out of me. So what I did, I let it go for, I don't know, a few days, and then came back to it. And by few, I mean 2 or 3, because still I only had like a week or something. And I came back to it with the approach of, let's have fun, add a bit of personal touch, because I knew that, for example, I wanted the like the sketchy vibe to it, but this pre-made font just was not it. And I knew I was not very happy about it. I wouldn't want this to represent my style of work. So maybe one question, is there someone from the judges because the way I picked the color palette is that I just picked the one I like the most, and I know that there were the rules to check it against the like the usage and color blindness, which I, to be honest, was not aware of. So I just randomly picked the color palette I liked. And one thing I also used in some of my previous works were the sketches. So I like to think that's my kind of signature. So I went with it. And this is how it turned out. This is just a screenshot of some of the cards. But basically, this is what I did. And this is the thing I did in Procreate, which I mentioned in the beginning. So Procreate was the app I used for this. And I was just there's not really any pattern. I wish I could share some wizardry done there, but it was just me randomly adding sketches I liked. I knew I didn't want to go like really crazy about it and just add some elements also for the not to take the attention from the content of the infographics, because that was still the most important part, but to add something a little extra and some fun take on it. So those are some elements I placed there, and this is the result. I'm thinking if I could, maybe I can share it also in Tableau in just a second, but this is basically what I did. One thing I would want to note here is the use of charts, because before I started creating this, I was thinking, okay, so I need to do some really cool Tableau feature or some cool chart. And I was thinking about all these options there, which definitely are in Tableau. And you can see that I used how many? 4 types of charts. So the majority is bar chart. Then there are some icons or shapes and maps. And I think the most crazy one, which is not even crazy, is the double chart. So I think the message here would be it doesn't always need to be, I don't know how to say this so it doesn't sound stupid. Sometimes the simplicity is the way, at least in my case. Right, so now looking back at what I did and how I approached this whole thing, there are certainly things I would rethink. There are more than these two, but these two stand out the most. One would be, and that's what I wanted to add, is the helpline contacts on the pages. I'm not sure where exactly, but that's what I had in mind, that based on your selection of the country or based on your location, you would see the helpline that's in your area. I wasn't able to find it online in terms of the data for this all in one place. I could definitely gather data myself. I just didn't have the capacity for it. So if I had more time, I would definitely do this because I think it adds extra value to the thing. And also the thing about the front page text, and I mean the first section of the text, I didn't really spend that much time creating the text. So I think if I could, I would remake it a bit. And now it brings me to the final set of slides I have, and that's the key takeaways for me. And I think you can also find something for you here. As I said, I consider myself being perfectionist. So for me, this part was the biggest lesson learned. And I know it sounds cliche, but I really was not expecting to be here among the top 3, even not among the top 10. And what this learned me is that it really doesn't have to be perfect for it to be nice and worthy. You can. One of the conditions was that you need to allow users to download the work. And if me from a few months back heard this, I would go crazy, because I would never show this to anyone, what's behind it, because it's not perfect. I admit it, I know it, and if you saw it, you know it too. But that doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then get personal, meaning leave some personal, not note, but give it some personal touch. So as I mentioned, for me, that those are the sketches I used, and maybe the how I use the color could be. So leave some signature. This is your work, and it's nice if it's recognized as that. Then then sorry. Keep it simple. And I used to say this when we had the first Practical user group. I shared how to use design while vising, and one key takeaway from that was also keep it simple and don't use everything just because you can. If you're using Tableau, you know that there's a lot of things you can do, like really a lot of them, but it doesn't mean you need to use them all at once. So choose wisely. Then be consistent. That's more related to how I got to the point here rather than to the base. And by being consistent, I mean it's my first time on Ironviz participating and being here, but also so that's the first time. But I wouldn't. It's not first time I did some visualization. It's not the first time I did infographics. It's not the first time I used Procreate to sketch. So and I think it circles back to what Jessica said and her advice that definitely practicing and making yourself be visible to the community is definitely very helpful and key point. Then this is more serious one out of all these, and it's be very clear on what your goals are, what are your expectations, and also what you're willing to sacrifice or to do for it. I don't want to sound it so strict, but if you take this road, you probably need to do a lot of things in your free time and prioritize stuff. So I think that's also important. And the last but not least, and I think maybe the most thought-provoking, at least for me, would be just have fun. This is supposed to be a fun project. Of course, it's nice to be placed in to have the recognition, but it's all about having fun, or it was at least for me. And there are more important things than having it perfect, having it yeah, I think that's it. Right, so I got a bit lost here, but those were the key takeaways for me. Thanks. In case you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. This is QR code to my LinkedIn profile, so I'm very happy to stay in touch and discuss further.
Thank you so much, Patricia. I think it was really good to see how it was personal and you kept it all together. What is your style? And you revolved around it, not making it too complex. And I really love the takeaways to be real and also have fun. That is truly important for this competition. We have few questions for you. So first is, okay, how did you align your sketches with the dashboard elements, especially on the first and the last pages of your dashboard?
So I had the base without the sketches, so the cards and all the shading and all that. So I created that first. I placed it as a background in Tableau, and then I placed the charts on top of it, so the Tableau objects directly. And then I was iterating between downloading or exporting the dashboard as a picture, uploading it to Procreate, and then just sketching around. So it was a lot of iterations, and especially the last slide was the most nerve-wracking because I had to place it so that I fit the text and also the little bullets, which were the sketches actually. So it was iteration back and forth.
Thank you. We have another question. Is it literally all 100% on the spot for the Iron Viz, or is there any direction or topic provided before the competition begins?
Well, it's I think you have like 20 minutes on the stage, and if we are discussing, you need to prep the data, you need to think about what you actually want to do with the data. So I think that would be a bit too little time. So there will be some preparation before.
I think there's a window because we had these questions earlier as well. Like it's impossible to get a data and build things in 20 minutes. So I think there's a time frame that is given to prepare, to bring the data, prep it for all of that process. So I think if you made it to the stage, you will really know about it, and Patricia will have knowledge about it as well once we go down the time. So thank you so much again, Patricia. Thank you so much for putting it all together on
Thank you.
this request, and thank you so much for this wonderful presentation.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
So, Patricia, what is your own tip to somebody who wants to be in your position as a finalist?
Yeah. Well, I think like I'm trying to pick only one of those I shared, but I can't pick only one. So I would say leave personal, like don't lose your personal remark trying to be like someone else. Even though there's a lot of inspiration, I think it's nice to have your little own something. And also, don't take it too serious. It's supposed to be fun and experience. So
Awesome. So make it personal, have fun. Great tips. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, so final speaker.
Yes. Okay, so we are down to our final speaker of the day. And here we have Chris Westlake. Chris discovered Tableau in 2018 and quickly knew he wanted to shift his career to a job that pays him to open Tableau every single day. That's quite interesting. In the process of succeeding in that move, he has become actively involved in sharing his love of Tableau as a co-leader of Scotland TUG and utilizing community initiatives and Tableau Public to improve his skills. He loves seeing others progress on their analytics journey and helping them on their way however he can. When he's not visiting, Chris loves to read and cook, but doesn't usually use recipes directly from cooking books. Where's the fun in cooking if nothing can go wrong? That's quite interesting. So I'll hand over to Chris, who is going to talk about the power of perseverance, his 5-year journey to the Iron Viz final. Take over the stage, Chris.
Amazing, thank you. And let me bring up my screen. Okay, so I'll have an intro slide about me. Prasanth's just kind of covered everything that is on it. Well, by day, I'm a senior BI analyst at JLL. We've got an amazing team here of some amazing analysts, and I kind of pinch myself every day that I get to work alongside these people and use a tool that I love all day, every day for work. By night, I do lots of cooking, lots of reading, and help lead the Scotland TUG. It's been really exciting over the last year, kind of watching the Tableau community in Scotland and Edinburgh and Glasgow specifically kind of grow and seeing kind of connections being formed through that. It's really inspiring to watch. Also picked up 4 visitor days and felt really strange adding to the bottom of my About Me slide that I'm an Ironviz 2024 finalist. I'm sure that will feel real soon. So where did my journey with Ironviz and with Tableau more generally begin? Back in 2018, I was in my penultimate year of university and kind of trying to work out what I wanted to do when I finished uni. So I decided to delay that decision for another year and did a placement year in a statistics agency, mostly working with SQL, but loads of data just flowing in and out of everything that I did. I was fortunate enough to work alongside Neil Richards, who's a Tableau visionary and ambassador, and he did a lunch and learn one day all about Tableau and his use of it. One of the visualizations that he showed was his own Iron Viz qualifier entry for that year. I've just popped a snippet of it on the right there. I think the feeder topic that year was around music. So this is looking at every note in a piece of classical music. I was utterly hooked at the kind of beauty of data in this, and it was sort of exactly what I was looking for as I was looking to embark on a career in data. So fast forward a year, I'd become a Tableau student ambassador, and as part of that, had the opportunity to go to Tableau conference in 2019. So being at the conference and in the audience at Iron Viz was unreal. If you've not been, it's really hard to kind of explain the energy that's in this room. It's completely nuts to think that this is just people building a dashboard. It really does not feel like there should be that much excitement and that much hype around it, but it's brilliant. I loved the energy, and I knew at that point that I absolutely had to enter this competition. So the next year, Ironviz qualifier time came round, and the theme was health and well-being. I really struggled to know whether I should enter in 2020. I was still incredibly new to Tableau and really felt that I had a lot to learn. Somewhere in the final week, I thought that I'd probably regret it if I didn't enter, so I pulled this together in about 12 hours, just over a few evenings. My viz, Missing Millions Missing, looks at the health condition ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. It's a condition that my sister's struggled with for the past 15 years, so it's very close to my heart and mostly goes unnoticed. The idea of missing stems from the fact that many people with this condition are bedbound and therefore missing from society. Reflecting back, the data isn't really strong enough in here for an Ironviz entry because there's so little known about the condition. There just wasn't the data set that would really bolster an analytical story in any way, and I definitely had a lot to learn in terms of design. So a year later, my second entry in 2021 on the theme of joy. This year, the timing of the feeder overlapped with a week that I had between jobs, so I was able to plan a little bit more and dedicate more time to it. When the theme was announced as joy, I think the weather was particularly good that week, or something like that doesn't happen too often in Scotland. So I thought that I'd try and do a piece looking at sunshine and rain and kind of how, yes, we have a lot of rain, but we also get a good amount of sunshine. I discovered a lot of new things around Tableau in the 12 months that kind of led up to this one. So radials as one thing, and also the ability to pull in backgrounds using PowerPoint in this example, and later I moved on to Figma. But I still had an awful lot to learn. The background here, if anything, detracts from the visual rather than adding to it, and there wasn't really that much of a takeaway from the story or the analysis. It rains every month in the UK, and in the summer we have more sun. It's not really the impactful story that I was hoping for. My third year entering Ironviz was in 2022 with the art and literature theme. This one I spent, again, more time on. It was up to about 75 hours for this one. I really struggled with this one, not being able to pick a piece of literature easily to focus on and not really being huge into art. I decided to look at the Psalms from the Bible as a piece of literature. So I took each verse from each Psalm and ran it through some code in R to do some sentiment analysis on the words in the verse, and created this kind of -1 to 1 scale, going from the most negative language to the most positive language. And as you step through the viz here, at the top, you can see this kind of radial, which just takes you through each of the 150 psalms. And as you click on them, going around the circle, the bars in the middle change to show you how that psalm progresses as you go through it. I then had a few sections looking at the impact of the author. So did who wrote the psalm impact how positive or negative the language was? The length of the psalm. Shorter psalms tended to be more positive, longer psalms not so much. Or the impact of theme. There are some psalms which are inherently more positive, some which are more negative. I was really proud of this, but there was still something missing. And in 2023, I kind of discovered what that missing link was for me. So the theme came out as games. And my mind went straight to one thing: sport. If you've seen any of my Tableau public profile, you will have noticed that sport occurs frequently in my portfolio, especially rugby. I was keen to focus on something else, a board game perhaps, but my mind kept going back to one thing. Even as someone who's lived in Scotland long enough to maybe, perhaps, one day be able to wear a kilt, there's no sporting occasion that I feel more passionately about than England winning the Rugby World Cup in 2003. I can remember watching it on the TV as a 7-year-old and just being in awe of this sport and this occasion. When I finally submitted myself to this idea, it was just about 4 days before the deadline. So the 50 hours here, though it was less than the previous year, it was a lot to do in 4 days. Because I had the passion for the subject, it didn't feel like that long a time. And I think that passion really came through in the visualization. So there was much more of a story kind of inherently in this. So I started off with an introduction looking at the previous times England and Australia had met in the World Cup prior to the 2003 final. I then walk the viewer through their road to the final, the starting lineups in the final, and then the final itself, doing a minute-by-minute analysis of the game as it unfolded, looking at every time the ball was kicked, every time there was a penalty, every time there was a substitution. It was a lot of work, and yeah, I was really happy to have this viz placed as second in the EMEA region in the qualifier last year, and I think that really spurred me on to enter again this year, knowing that maybe, just maybe, the final wasn't so out of reach as I previously thought it might be. I also asked for feedback for this entry, and that was a great idea, and I'd highly recommend you do the same if you enter Iron Viz. It's really eye-opening to see what the judges are actually looking at and what they think of your visualization. For this one, they said there was a lack of story running through the visualization, and all of the text that you can see in here is embedded in a background image, which is great for publishing it because none of the text will move when you move from Tableau Desktop onto Tableau Public, but people who use screen readers or can't see screens as well as I can will miss that bit of text because there's no way for them to access it. These were just things that I was able to then take into my build for this year's entry. So my fifth entry to Iron Viz at the end of last year the theme came out as love, and as Patricia was saying, it's quite a vague topic. It kind of felt like anything could be shaped into the theme as long as you made it clear why you loved it. I wanted to approach it in a slightly different way, something that would make people stop and think and take notice. The visualization is all about food, but not just my love for food. Also, the lack of food around the globe and how I love that we're dedicated as a global effort to end that lack of food. So I'll just jump into the visualization quickly. So in here you can see when you open up the visualization, you're met with this title and then these very dark boxes, which are 6 of my favorite recipes that I love to cook. Each of these boxes is made up of the ingredients, showing you how much of each ingredient goes into the recipe. You've also got these 3 icons down the right hand side, which tell you why I love the recipe, kind of just adding a bit of a personal touch. Listing out the ingredients and also showing you the method if you wanted to cook the recipe at home. I'd highly recommend all of these. As you come down, you're then hit by this stark reality that not everyone in the world gets to enjoy food in the same way. It's a very big number. There's also this trend chart which follows the pattern through the past, I think it was 20 years, looking at the impact of the financial crisis in 2008, and then linking it through to when the UN introduced their Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, and also how we were improving until the COVID-19 pandemic forced undernourishment up a little bit higher. There are then 3 sections that follow. The first looking at where is there undernourishment, and in here I wanted to give kind of a general overview of the picture of undernourishment in the different regions of the world, but also to give the users a way to access a little bit more detail. So each of these is accompanied with a zoom button, which opens up this extra piece of analysis listing out each of the countries within that region and also showing you how their undernourishment has changed over the past 20 years. As you come down, the next section is all about how we can end undernourishment, kind of the factors that influence undernourishment. So here we have 3 scatter plots. The first looking at the relationship between education and undernourishment, the second gender equality and undernourishment, and the third climate change. Because we'd selected the Sub-Saharan Africa region above, it's also highlighted those countries in each of these scatter plots. And as before, you can zoom in here to make those scatter plots a little bit bigger and reveal some further analysis. Each of those indicators that we're looking at are made up of several other scores that come from different places. And I've given you the option to look at how those are comprised by clicking through, opening up a definition and more analysis in the background. And the final section, I really wanted to link this back to the theme because so far I've kind of looked at my love for food and my favorite recipes, but then I've also looked at global hunger, and that's definitely not something that I love. So what about this makes my heart full? And really it's the progress that we're making and the idea that we can reach a point in the world where undernourishment is a thing of the past. So you can see here that 23 countries in the last 20 years, these countries have reduced their undernourishment levels down to the lowest possible recordable level. And a further 70 countries have made a huge amount of progress in that same direction. Then to round everything off, I've put in a few links to some charitable causes around the world that are working to try and end this issue of global hunger, inviting the user to click to donate and to do what they can to help make undernourishment a thing of the past. So how did I go from the theme to that finished product? I'm going to just talk through a few elements of this, and hopefully we can start to see where that came from, and hopefully there are some tips in there that will help you with your own process when you enter Iron Viz later this year. So the first part of any good viz is a great idea, and I'd learned from the previous year that it really needed to be a topic that I was passionate about. The theme really made this easy, so I could just ask myself, what do I love? Bearing in mind that I wanted to make it something that had a little bit of a harsher hit, something with a bit more of a social element. The obvious answer here was rugby. It was the year of a Rugby World Cup last year, and my mind went back to 1995 when South Africa won the Rugby World Cup on their kind of return to the global stage, as it sort of marked the end of apartheid in the country, and it really brought the whole country together and unified a lot within the country. Another idea I had was food. It's something that I've visualized in the past, looking at recipes that I've created. In 2022, I set myself a goal to create 25 new recipes, and I documented them all in this visualization. And my wife as well. So which thing on here did I love the most? Or which thing did I feel could make the best qualifier entry? Well, in the end, I went with food, though they're all quite good suggestions. So there are three elements to an Iron Viz entry in terms of judging: analysis, storytelling, and design. So I'll start by talking through my process around analysis and storytelling. Or, as I prefer to approach it, storytelling and then analysis. It's a lot easier to have a concrete story that you can follow through in your analysis if you start with that story, imagining it as having a beginning, a middle, and an end that you want to guide people through. So in building this out, I asked myself 5 questions: who, where, when, why, and what. These are questions that I ask a lot of the time when I'm building out vizes. So for this one, who does undernourishment impact? Where in the world are they? Has the picture changed over time? Why does undernourishment exist? And what can we do to help? It was once I had these questions that I was able to then find the data that could fit the answer to these questions. Thankfully, the topic of global hunger is such a huge thing in the world and in the media at the moment. There's a lot of open source, reliable data to choose from, which made it really easy to find a substantial amount of data that could fit together to form the basis of my analysis. So once you've got all of that data, you need to start to get to know your data. I do this very kind of on the fly. I'll just pull things into Tableau, put things on columns, put things on rows, and see what insights strike me, and try and use that to build a story around it. So as I was going through this, I was finding a number of elements within the data that really interested me. Things like Madagascar, as a country, has the highest level of undernourishment in the world, but they also sit just above the GDP level that leaves them too rich to be able to claim financial aid. And so the situation just gets worse and worse each year for them. I was also drawn towards countries like Syria and Afghanistan, as there are clear patterns that availability of food takes through the years of conflict. As these kind of elements of a story started coming into my head and I started discovering more and more of them, started wondering how many of these similar stories I might be missing. And I asked myself, do I really need a curated story? Or could I leave the users to explore the dashboard themselves and find that story that they're interested in, while giving them the tools that they need to analyze the data, including those annotations, but not tying it down to the story that I wanted to tell, but giving them the freedom so that every person in the world who is undernourished is represented through this visualization. The final piece in the judging criteria is the design. And I want to just look at 3 elements of design that I considered here. So first, the format of the visualization. What you're seeing on the right is a kind of very first draft of a layout that I was playing around with. The purple eventually became green, which I think was one of the best choices I've ever made. The first draft of this had everything screen sized, so it was very like a business dashboard, a lot like Jessica's entry, where you click through and it would uncover a new page of the visualization. Because I wasn't going to be there to tell this story or guide the user through on my own, I didn't want everything to be visible when you first open up the visualization, which is why this click through, even on this first page, it would reveal the story slowly to really make the user stop and think about what they were looking at. As I thought about this and started building it out, I realized that when viewing a dashboard myself, I like to kind of flick between the charts quite quickly, scrolling left to right, up or down, to see and remind myself of the numbers that I've just seen previously. Something like that isn't as possible with a visualization like this, because you have to wait for the page to load each time you click a button, and by the time it had gone back to the previous page, I'd forgotten what I went back to look at. So I moved on to a second version of the format, a wide view. This would follow a similar pattern, so you'd open up kind of each leaf of the visualization as you went through, but I was finding it really hard to build because a computer mouse doesn't allow you to scroll left to right very easily. It also became quite clear to me that there was a natural symmetry in my visualization with kind of 3 panels that would work really well if I went with a long form visualization, which, I ended up going with. So the image on the right here is a wireframe that I came up with fairly early on in the build, and obviously formed very much the overall format of the visualization. What you might notice about this is there's a very faint grey bar in the top left of that image, which is set to the height of the screen that I was building the visualization on. It was really important to me to be able to control what users were able to see without scrolling. And so by having this there as a constant reminder, I could space things out appropriately and ensure that that was still forefront in my mind even when I started building. The next design consideration was color. Throughout this visualization, I've used one main color, the green, which always means the same thing. It's always highlighting the country that you're looking at or highlighting undernourishment. This helps keep things consistent, and I think it really contributes to an overall very clean view. There are obviously several minor colors in there as well. I really wanted that first section to be quite bold and hard-hitting, and it didn't need to be that analytically rich, because it was just there as a placeholder to feed you into the rest of the visualization. I also wanted these same colors to come through in the rest of the visualization, so you can see them in the click to donate buttons at the bottom, and I've also used them in other places as as annotation indicators in some of the text. The final aspect of design is, of course, the chart types. For this, I really tried to keep it simple, having gone a little bit overboard with radials a few years ago. I thought, take it back to basics. And the most out-of-the-box visualization that I used were these tree maps. As I was just saying, these didn't need to be analytically great. You didn't need to be able to look at it straight away and say, oh, in that recipe, there's 75% of the ingredients are this food group. It just needed to give you a general feel for what was going on and maybe spark a bit of interest. I then have some line charts and I guess small bar charts in there as well, which are just a really great simple way to show time series data. And I think most people know how to read a line chart without any instructions. There's then these barbell charts, which I think hugely underappreciated in the visualization space. It's a great way to connect 2 points and show just the change in 2 years worth of data, as I'm doing here. The kind of bolder green dots also really indicate that change as you go from the more affluent countries in that view to those that struggle more with undernourishment. And finally, I have scatter plots, which again are one of my favorite visualization forms. With this, you can show kind of a lot of information in a really easy, clean way, and being able to compare undernourishment against those other aspects that maybe influence it a lot or not so much. It just gives a really clean way to interrogate that data. So just before I finish, some key takeaways. Viz what you love, always. Whether the theme is love or it's something else. Find something that you're passionate about, something that gets you excited, something that you could talk about for hours, and make that the topic of your visualization. Start with a story and then find the data. For any story, you need to start knowing where you're going in that journey. And if you start with the analysis, it's quite easy to get lost on the way, I've found in the past. In terms of analysis and design, keep it simple. You don't need the big fancy charts to tell a really good story or to have a really nice design. And finally, have fun and be proud of what you produce. Creating visualizations should be fun. It's what we do. It's why I guess most people are watching this. It's something that we enjoy doing, and that needs to stay forefront in everything that we do. So thank you for listening. I hope I've inspired at least one person to enter Iron Viz this year.
Awesome. Great talk, Chris. This has been really fantastic. So question wise, let's see if we have any questions. Okay. So I think anyone, if you got any questions for Chris, please feel free to pop into the Q&A here. And I guess while that's happening, Chris, I guess we can go same question that we've had for the other two. If you had one tip for all of us here, in order to get to where you are going on to stage today, what would be your one tip for us to get to that?
Without a doubt, Viz what you love. It's something that I tell people every time I talk to them about my public visualizations. Find something that you're interested in, even if it's something that it feels like only you could be interested in it. Once that passion starts to come across, it will open up so many doors, and you might find people that are interested in the same thing. And you'll definitely learn a lot through doing that.
Awesome. Great tip. Let's see, do we have any more? Okay, so I see one. It's a bit, separate topic, right? So, what was your favorite book or two from the shelf behind you?
Oh, it's always risky putting this many books behind me on a call like this. So I've not read that many of them. I would say one of my favorites at the moment is this tall blue one just here. It's Data Sketches by, don't want to embarrass myself here, by Shirley Wu and Nadia Bremer. It's a brilliant investigation of just some truly beautiful visualizations, and I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's a great one. Prasan actually gifted that to me, so like it's
Okay.
I
Excellent.
recommend. Okay, it looks like there's one more. So, was there a point in your Ironviz journey where you thought of just, giving up and no longer entering the Ironviz?
Yeah, definitely. I think after the third year with my Psalms viz, I really enjoyed that viz and was really proud of it. And kind of, there was definitely a part of me that was expecting to get into the top 10 with that one. And it was very disheartening entering and just getting next to no recognition for it. But I think coming back to kind of the reason that I entered Ironviz that first year, which is to learn from it and to engage with other people who are entering as well. It kind of really spurred me on to create that next visualization, I guess.
Awesome. Great, great, great. So I think that we're done with questions. So, Prasan, do you want to take us home? Or should I take us home?
Sure. Okay, so first and foremost, thank you so much, speakers, for coming in so quickly. This event was decided in the nick of time, and I really appreciate you finding time and putting this all good, great stuff out there for all of us. Very quickly, I think it was even less than a week when we decided to bring this event up. And I'm really, really glad that all of you made it. And also, see you next month. You can register. You can go to this link, also scan this QR code. We do events every month, and we have a lot of events lined up for this year as well. So many great speakers coming up. So I hope you enjoyed the event, and see you next time. Be connected
Awesome.
with us. See you on LinkedIn.
So, and good luck to all the finalists as you prepare and as you get onto stage. We're rooting for all of you. We hope to see you do great stuff.
Thank you.